The Ice Queen's descent. Serafina Vance was Manhattan's most notorious Ice Queen, a ruthless CEO who treated the boardroom like a battlefield and men like minor annoyances. It had taken Julian Thorne 2 years of relentless devotion to make her fall for him. But once the untouchable goddess was pulled from her pedestal, she became a different person entirely. Her love was a suffocating obsession. She showered him with million-dollar gifts daily, and at the height of her passion, she had even thrown herself in front of a blade to protect him, languishing in the ICU for 3 days while doctors fought to save her. The elite circles of New York often teased her. "Serafina, you're a billionaire powerhouse. You'd really give your life for one man? Is he worth it?" Serafina would only look at Julian with a gaze like honey. "He is. My Julian deserves the best the world has to offer. He is my life. He is the one who rules me." Julian believed they would be happy forever. He never could have imagined that Serafina would suddenly fall under the spell of a man peddling spiritual energy and modern mysticism. When Julian was clinging to life after a horrific car crash, bleeding out in the ER, Serafina was busy helping Ezra St. Claire run a free aura reading booth on a sidewalk in Brooklyn. When Julian was bitten by a copperhead at a private nature preserve, Serafina followed Ezra's advice, using a blessed paper talisman instead of anti-venom, leading to a deep infection that nearly cost Julian his leg to gangrene. Driven to the edge, Julian finally snapped. "Serafina, I'm done. If Ezra is what you want, then we're finished. The merger marriage is off. We're over." But it didn't end. This time, Ezra had ruined Julian's birthday gala. He burst into the ballroom with a camera crew in tow, pointing a finger at Julian with absolute certainty. "Julian, I've seen your aura darkening. Those shadows under your eyes. You're being hunted by a dark entity. Julian, you're like a brother to me." Ezra continued, his voice dripping with faux concern. "I've sacrificed my own spiritual vitality to calculate a solution. There's a restricted stretch of water in the Hamptons. If you submerge yourself there for 24 hours, the entity will dissipate." The room erupted in whispers. Someone in the crowd recognized him and shouted excitedly, "Wait, is that Ezra St. Claire, the guru from TikTok? He's the real deal. He helps people for free, and his readings are always 100% accurate." Julian, a man of science and logic, sneered. "I'm perfectly fine. I don't need your superstitions." Ezra's face went pale. "I'm literally draining my own life force to find this cure for you. I only did this because I consider you a friend, and this is how you treat me." It was absurd, but to Julian's horror, Serafina stepped forward, her eyes cold and distant. "Ezra is never wrong. He rarely intervenes, but if he's speaking up now, it's because whatever is attached to you is dangerous." Julian stared at her in disbelief. Serafina, like him, had always been a staunch atheist. He vividly remembered her saying that relying on God is for people who can't rely on themselves. Julian tried to pull his hand away, but she gripped his wrist with bruising force, her manicured nails digging into his skin. "Julian, do you want to go voluntarily, or do I have to have my security take you?" Her tone was brittle, leaving no room for argument. Julian shoved her back. "I'm not going." A second later, Serafina's perfect lips curled into a cold command. "Mr. Thorne is possessed. Take him to the water for the cleansing." The Atlantic was bone-chilling. Even for a fit man like Julian, the restricted bay was freezing. He was shivering violently within minutes. He had to get out. The shore was only 30 feet away, but it took him 20 minutes of agonizing swimming to reach the edge. His face was bloodless. "I'm not possessed. I'm getting out of this water." Before he could pull himself up, a heavy hand slammed onto his head, shoving him back into the dark swells. "Julian, you have to stay in for the full 24 hours. Ezra's voice came from above. "Just endure it. Serafina and I are doing this for your own good." Julian's body sank into the dark water. Before his vision blurred, he saw Serafina, the woman who once claimed he was her entire life, collapse into Ezra's waiting arms. It felt like a knife to the heart. Every time Julian tried to climb out, Ezra was there to shove him back. Eventually, Julian gave up. He drifted for 10 hours until his consciousness began to fade. Suddenly, a searing pain tore through his thigh. Blood bloomed in the water, turning the surface a sickening crimson. Julian's mind went blank with terror. Piranhas. This restricted zone was a dump site for an illegal exotic pet trade. It was infested. Serafina stood up the moment she heard the scream. Ezra's eyes flashed with a cruel light, and he grabbed her arm. "That's just the entity trying to leave his body. If we pull him out now, it'll stay inside him. We have to wait." Seraphina's feet seemed frozen to the deck. After a long minute of hesitation, she turned her gaze away. In that minute, Julian was shredded. Only his sheer will to live allowed him to scramble onto the shore, his vision failing as he collapsed from blood loss. When he woke up, he was mummified in bandages. He stared blankly at the sterile, white hospital ceiling. From the hallway, he heard Ezra's self-flagellating voice. I was only trying to help. How was I supposed to know about the Piranhas? I just didn't want him to be haunted. I did it all for him. Julian clenched his fists so hard his nails drew blood. Then he heard Seraphina's voice, soft and comforting. Julian won't blame you. She had forgiven a man for him, just like that. The door pushed open. Seeing him awake, Seraphina let out a sigh of relief and tried to feed him some gourmet tremella soup. She looked so tender, as if she hadn't been the one who watched him nearly be torn apart by predators. Julian slapped the bowl out of her hand. The soup splattered across the floor. His voice was raspy but iron-willed. Seraphina, get Ezra, St. Clear out of New York. If you don't, the Thorne family will destroy him. Seraphina's expression darkened. No, Ezra acted out of the goodness of his heart. Besides, he's my personal consultant now. If the Thorns touch him, they'll have to go through me first. Julian felt like he couldn't breathe. Seraphina, I almost died, and you're still protecting him? Seraphina's beautiful face remained a mask of indifference. Yes. Julian closed his eyes. What if I insist on ruining him? The shadow of her nose cast a sharp line across her cheek. In this city, no one touches him. Julian let out a bitter laugh. Seeing his state, Seraphina's tone softened slightly. Don't worry. I've hired the best plastic surgeons to stitch you up. There won't be scars. At the end of the month, I'll tell the elders I'm ready for the wedding. I told you, I'm going to marry you. He had waited 6 years to hear those words. Now, the thought of them made him sick. Seeing his silence, Seraphina assumed he was simply speechless with joy. She stroked his cheek. I have a board meeting. Rest up. As soon as she left, Julian dialed his parents. Dad, Mom, change the alliance partner. Swap the Van Sass for the Sterling heiress. Julian, are you sure? Eleanor Sterling is in a wheelchair. And weren't you and Seraphina in love? Julian's knuckles turned white. Nothing happened. I just realized Seraphina Vance isn't the woman I thought she was. There was a long silence. Julian, I support you. The Sterlings want the wedding in a month. Can you handle that? Julian spoke with cold precision. I can. On his second day of recovery, Seraphina was out of town. On his phone screen was Ezra's latest TikTok live. Seraphina, the billionaire CEO who looked down on the world, was acting as Ezra's humble assistant. Julian watched her patiently give Ezra water. He watched her let Ezra use her as a spiritual conduit. He watched her lean in and kiss him. Julian's breath hitched. He had once been so proud of her affection. Now it was a grotesque play. A week later, Julian was discharged. Seraphina appeared in a white sundress, holding red roses. She looked exactly like she did when they were first in love. Julian opened the car door, only to see Ezra sitting in the passenger seat. Julian, hospitals are full of negative energy, Ezra chirped. Seraphina and I are taking you to a Zen retreat to clear your chakras. Julian slammed the door shut. I'll take a cab. You two go. Ezra's face fell. Is Julian still mad? If it weren't for me, who knows what would have happened to him? Julian, we're doing this for you. A nameless fire surged in Julian's chest. I don't care. What does it have to do with me? Seraphina's eyes narrowed. Give me one good reason why you won't go. Julian laughed. He had to justify his own life to her. He tried to walk away, but Seraphina nodded to her security team. They roughly forced him into the back seat. Ezra is thinking about you at every turn. Stop being so difficult. Seraphina snapped. Julian felt like he'd swallowed a ball of cotton. He was too disappointed to speak. The silent rebuke at the retreat, the final stop was an audience with an old monk for a lotto reading. Ezra and Seraphina both pulled excellent luck sticks. Julian reached in and pulled one out. Julian froze. The stick was blank. Ezra gasped. Oh my God, a blank stick. Only those who are insincere and harbor darkness fail to receive a word from the divine. Instantly, the surrounding tourists glared at Julian. Julian, if you want to prove your sincerity, you have to crawl on your knees from the foot of the mountain to the summit, Ezra suggested, eyes gleaming. Julian's pupil shrank. The 99 stone steps? There are many ways to prove sincerity. And who are you to say a blank stick means I'm insincere? He turned to leave, but Seraphina's bodyguards blocked his path. Julian, is this how the Thorne family raised you? Seraphina's voice was like ice. In that case, I'll teach you what your parents failed to. Take Mr. Thorn to the bottom. He stays on his knees until he finishes the 99 steps. Before Julian could react, he was dragged down. Under the scorching sun, he began to move, inch by agonizing inch. By the 80th step, his knees were shredded. He passed out several times, only to be jolted awake by water splashed in his face. Orders from Ms. Vance, the guards muttered. He reached the summit as a torrential downpour began. He looked toward Seraphina for help, only to see her vanish under Ezra's umbrella without a single backward glance. He dragged himself back to the lodge to find Ezra wiping a crumb from Seraphina's lip. Ezra smiled. Sorry, Julian. I was so hungry, I thought I'd eat before coming to get you. Julian stood there, dripping with blood. Ezra grabbed his wrist and forced him into a chair. The sound of bone grinding on bone made Julian scream. Julian, I've developed a new spiritual ointment. Let's try it. Julian pushed Ezra away. I'll just use antiseptic. Seraphina slammed her glass onto the table. Julian Thorn, Ezra made this specifically for you. You will use it. Seraphina's men caught him instantly. Ezra poured a pink liquid onto the raw wounds. White foam hissed and bubbled instantly. Julian's body convulsed with agony. Is this acid? Bubbling is normal. I consider you a brother. Why would I use acid? Julian spiraled into a high fever. When he woke, his bandages were soaked in blood. Seraphina's soft hand touched his. You've been out for 2 days. Do your legs still hurt? Julian pulled away. Seraphina, look at what you've done to me. Ezra and I were just worried. It's a new formula. A little variation in effect is normal. He listened to her excuse Ezra with a hollow heart. There's a meteor shower the day after tomorrow, Seraphina said. Didn't you say you wanted to see one again? 6 years ago, Julian had fallen for her at an observatory. He wanted to see the meteors to thank the stars for finding her. Now he felt nothing. I'm injured. I'm not going. Seraphina's eyes flashed. Julian, be good. You know what happens when you refuse me. I'll pick you up. 2 days later, at the observatory, a scream shattered the silence. A snake was coiled around a man's neck. Julian reached for his phone to call for help. Ezra snatched it away. Julian, you used to keep snakes. Save him. Give me my phone. I'm not a professional wrangler. Ezra shoved Julian hard, directly toward the man and the snake. The startled viper lunged, sinking its fangs into Julian's neck. Suffocation set in instantly. Julian's eyes pleaded with Seraphina. She started toward him, but Ezra caught her arm. I've just done a reading. This venom will actually strengthen Julian's constitution. Seraphina stopped. She looked away. The unraveling 3 days later, Julian woke up in Seraphina's bedroom. I'm going home, Julian said. Seraphina realized that the Julian who used to tell her everything was now silent. I'll drive you. On the way, her phone rang. It was Ezra. Seraphina, I'm at the hospital. Please come. Seraphina slammed on the brakes. Get out. Julian watched her car speed away. Ezra had a blister from a coffee spill, yet she left Julian on a remote road with injured legs. He walked 6 miles to get home. Once there, he burned every memento of her. That weekend, his parents returned. Julian, tell me the truth. Did something happen with Seraphina? Nothing. I just don't love her anymore. The Sterling heiress sent a gift, a 50% stake in their corporation. Her only condition is that the wedding be held in Chicago. Julian was stunned. Eleanor Sterling was giving him her entire world. I can handle that. The next day, Seraphina brought invitations to her grandfather's birthday party. His parents showed her the door. Julian decided to go one last time, to say goodbye to the old man who had been kind to him. At the gala, Ezra intercepted a man, Silas Vane, who was beating his wife. Silas was a powerful developer. Is this idiot yours? Silas asked Seraphina, referring to Ezra. Ezra pointed at Julian. It was Julian's idea. He said you were no better than an animal. Silas turned to Julian. The Thorns, huh? If you don't want your family's 9-figure deal to vanish, you're coming to drink with me. Seraphina blurted out. You're not taking him. But Ezra pulled her sleeve. Seraphina, Julian is a man. He can handle it. Your grandfather is waiting. Seraphina lets Silas take Julian. At the bar, Silas ordered 100 bottles of beer. Finish them, and the deal stays. Julian drank until he was coughing up blood and collapsed. He would make sure she stayed in the past. The next morning, Seraphina came to the hospital. Yesterday was a tactical move, Julian. Silas would have ruined Ezra. And what about me? I threw up blood because Ezra framed me. You slapped him back, didn't you? Let go. Julian went silent. Serafina had her guards drag him out of the hospital to a haunted house for another of Ezra's rituals. At midnight, Ezra screamed, shoved Julian toward a killer actor with a chainsaw, and ran off with Serafina. Julian fell, scraping his palms raw, left alone in the dark. The final break by 5 a.m., Julian found the exit. His phone was dead. He finally reached Serafina on a payphone, but the sound that came through his rhythmic breathing and Ezra's low groan. Serafina, am I not enough for you? You're distracted. Ezra's voice murmured. Julian stood frozen. His heart felt like it had been ripped out. Suddenly, a hand covered his mouth. This is the guy who hit the master, a voice hissed. He woke to ice water in an abandoned warehouse. 2 of Ezra's fanatical followers slapped him 99 times for the master. Serafina finally burst in, untying him, but her next move was a betrayal. She settled with the kidnappers out of court to protect Ezra's reputation. Julian sent Serafina a breakup text and blocked her. He headed for the airport. Serafina abandoned her own engagement meeting with the Thorn elders when Ezra called, claiming to be followed. She found him in an old historic district. I've sensed a dragon vein here. Stay with me for a few days? Serafina wanted to say no, but the words that came out were, okay, anything for you. The wedding she missed by the 10th day. Serafina returned to New York to find her grandfather in a rage. He struck her with his cane. The Thorn Sterling wedding was finished 10 days ago. Julian Thorn married Eleanor Sterling. Serafina couldn't believe it, that her grandfather threw a stack of photos at her. Photos of her and Ezra kissing and entering hotels. The Thorns gave these to us personally. Your parents were so ashamed they left the country. If you're sorry, get rid of that man today, her grandfather roared. Serafina tried to agree, but her voice betrayed her. Grandpa, I love Ezra. I want to be with him. In Chicago, Julian saw the news. He looked at Eleanor Sterling, who had been his classmate in college. Grandpa Vance wants to see you, Eleanor said. I won't see any of the Van Cess, Julian replied. The parasite every time Serafina tried to leave for Chicago to find Julian, her mind went blank. Ezra would distract her. She saw him live streaming, giving his last $5,000 to scammers while she was forced to live in his cramped apartment. Ezra decided to adopt every stray dog in the neighborhood. Serafina was deathly allergic. Ezra, I can't breathe. Ezra drew a blood talisman. This will stop the allergy. That night, Serafina went into anaphylactic shock. At the hospital, Ezra pushed her into the arms of the Vance bodyguards. Go home, Serafina. I have to take care of the dogs. Back at work, Ezra burst into a high-level board meeting, live streaming it. Serafina, I've sensed a dark omen. The damage was done. Corporate secrets were leaked. The company lost billions. The revelation in Chicago. Julian's mother told him a secret. Eleanor and Serafina were friends once. They had a falling out over you. Julian looked at Eleanor, who was now standing. Her paralysis had been a temporary injury she'd used to filter out fake friends. In New York, Ezra came to Serafina, crying. He had accidentally killed a man by giving him a healing potion that was actually industrial cleaner. Serafina suppressed the story, but she began to notice a dream. Ezra covered in black insects. The cleansing Serafina confronted Ezra at a restaurant. In a struggle, a small black beetle fell from Ezra's sleeve. You hexed me. Ezra turned manic. Almost had you. I hate that you love him. Serafina had her guards seize him. She then crawled to her grandfather's study and collapsed to her knees. She raised her hand and struck herself across the face, 3 times, hard enough to leave crimson welts. The first is for my stupidity in risking the company for a fraud, she sobbed. The second is for my disrespect to you. The third is for my blindness to the man who actually loved me. The debt paid the specialist, a middle-aged woman, placed a large black and red centipede into a steaming herbal bath. Serafina soaked in it, her head feeling like it was being split open. Suddenly, Serafina felt a violent surge in her stomach and retched, vomiting a dark pool of blood onto the floor. Inside the mess, a tiny black creature writhed for a second before shriveling into ash. The parasite is gone, the specialist said. Serafina's mind cleared instantly. The weight of what she had done to Julian hit her like a physical blow. She sent her men to catch Ezra and had him thrown into the same Hamptons water. Stay there for 24 hours, she commanded. Ezra screamed as the piranhas tore at him. He survived, but he was broken. The specialist took him away to be dealt with by their order. Serafina flew to Chicago. She stood outside the Sterling estate in the rain for 12 hours. Finally, Julian came out with an umbrella. I was hexed, Julian. It wasn't me. Julian looked at her with pity. It doesn't matter, Serafina. When you watch me scream in that water and turn away, the man who loved you died. Whether it was a hex or your own heart, that bridge is burnt. The point of no return. I've started a new life, Julian said. Goodbye, Serafina. Serafina spiraled. She became a workaholic, but every night she would drink and look at Julian's life from afar. She sent him millions of dollars in gifts, watches, cars, all of which he returned. She blocked his path one day. Divorce her. I'll be the other woman. Just don't leave me. Eleanor Sterling appeared and shoved her away. You had your chance, Serafina. You didn't just lose him, you destroyed him. Get out. The end of the line years later, Serafina was walking through a park when she saw a homeless man, disfigured and babbling. It was Ezra St. Claire. He smiled at her with rotting teeth. Serafina Vance died shortly after, her spirit broken and her heart exhausted, haunted by the memory of a love she had allowed to be stolen. Story complete.